Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, once again to our last panel discussion and the most awaited panel discussion of the afternoon, which speaks on the future of BFSI, digital insurance, InsureTech, and contact centers. Very quickly, just to give you all a run through, since we are all coming out from the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, the challenges faced by CXOs ahead is to reimagine how to engage with their customers, generate additional revenue, cost control, launch of new products and platforms, effective communication with end customers, and deploy talent effectively, what promise to be effectively increasing in the virtually driven and data driven economy. With me, I have Miss Neha Modgil, who is the moderator for this particular session. She is the COO, Global Design and Head of UI UX of TECHVED Consulting. Neha, over to you to take this panel discussion and steer it in the right way.
Thanks, Marcus. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the panel discussion. We've got a set of esteemed panelists here. I'd quickly introduce these panelists before we deep dive into discussions with them. We have Mr. Vincent here, Mr. Jerome Vincent. He's vertical head grievance redressal at Bajaj Allianz Insurance Company. Bajaj Allianz General Insurance has been twice awarded Digital Insurer of the Year across Asia. It's ranked number 8 amongst the global top 100 digital insurers and figures in IDC's 20 best insurers for 2020 in the Asia Pacific. And Mr. Jerome's distinguished career spanning 17 plus years with Bajaj Allianz, Allianz UK, Barclays. His forte has been driving customer experience across the value chain by combining new age technologies with customer insights and exceeding customers' expectations profitably. I think profitably is a good word, Jerome, to put in your introduction. So that's Mr. Jerome for all of you. We'll move to Mr. Mikhail Mitra. He's recognized as one of the top 100 growth hackers in the world. Mikhail brings 16 years of expertise in customer experience strategy consulting for quality products and services in the insurance space, healthcare space, consumer internet business space. He's an entrepreneur at heart. He's been instrumental in building Mantra Labs with focus on products, marketing, innovation. He also co-founded Self-Flash. Self-Fash, is it, Mikhail?
Self-Fash, yeah.
Yeah.
It's dead. It's dead now, so we can skip it.
Yeah. But it was in its time a social selling app and scaled about 20,000 resellers on the platform. At Mantra Labs, he is currently focusing on augmented reality, conversational AI, video-based interactions for our next generation millennials of customer service. When locked off from work, he can be found obsessing over his automobiles, plotting the next trip to the mountains, beaches. It'll be good to know how you're keeping yourself busy in this lockdown, though, Mikhail. But that's Mikhail for you. Then we move to Mr. Kamlesh Manuja. Mr. Kamlesh Manuja has been associated with Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance for over 3 years, and he currently heads business operations, customer service function for the company. With an experience spanning 2 decades, Kamlesh is a seasoned professional in insurance sector, and he has experience in both life, non-life companies. He has extensive experience across operations, customer service, risk management, wellness, provider management, portfolio management. He has sound interpersonal leadership qualities. He leads a team of more than 350 people at Edelweiss Tokyo Life right now. He was also associated with the ICICI Prudential Life for about 15 years, and he was very instrumental in setting up risk management, life, and health business verticals. He's worked with Cigna TTK Health Insurance as Executive Vice President, Service Delivery. He's a passionate cricketer, traveler, involved in academia, conducting several guest lectures for students of institutes like National Insurance Academy in Pune. He's also authored health insurance curriculum for the Insurance Institute. He was a part of the FICCI Health Insurance Working Committee and has delivered addresses across international forums. We are very, very delighted, Kamlesh, to have you here and to hear from you today.
Thank you.
And we have, last but not the least, Mr. Amarjeet Kapoor. He's the head specialized units at Bajaj FinServ. Amarjeet, or you could call him Amar, in his role leads the contact center strategy and growth functions for Bajaj Finance, including contact center COE, business operations, analytics, and partner strategy. Amar's experience in contact center industry spans almost 2 decades, with over 12 years in senior management roles. He has a track of setting up, successfully scaling, and continuously transforming multiple contact center businesses across pan India, international geographies. His vast, diverse experience has enabled organizations to transform contact center processes across sales, customer service, collections, back office verticals. Alumni of Indian School Business, MBA from the Institute of Business Management Studies, and he's currently engaged in scripting his thesis for doctorate studies. Amar is continuously engaged in research and development of global best-in-class practices across people, processes, technologies in contact center. So I think I'm privileged to be talking to all of these esteemed panelists here. I don't see Amar though. Has he dropped out? I would ask the host to check once if Amar has dropped out and get him back while we get started with this
He'll
discussion.
join in shortly.
Okay, okay. So, COVID has changed the consumer behavior. It's changed the ecosystem. It's changed the way people look at digital or the way people have adapted to digital. There's been an unprecedented rise in the virtual footfalls of various virtual digital products. It's said that 79% of smartphone buyers have made at least one purchase in last 6 months. And we're talking of the entire India. We're also talking of the India which is not so literate India. And we all know of this case study of Queen Ambit. I mean, the Queen Ambit series that was launched on Netflix, which was all about chess and how it led to Amazon chessboard sales going up, or the Google search results of how to play chess suddenly went up. So we're living in that integrated world, right? And while we have gloomy pictures of sufferings and all that people are going through, we have happy stories too. So, Jerome, I'll start with you. That what have the last 2 years taught you, and how have you managed to keep yourself afloat while insurance may or may not be in a great space? So, over to you, Jerome. What's just tell me about all that you've gone through in the last 2 years.
To start off with, I guess the phenomenon of COVID, when it came, it was just taken by surprise across everywhere, and that was something like we never were prepared for it to begin with. And when it started off, the first wave that came in March of last year, suddenly all the companies, all the insurance companies were trying to understand how do we now actually keep the services ongoing. Flexibility was the need of the hour, and change at a much quicker pace was what was very much required. Immediately, the game changer was how quickly we adapt to the digitalization of various avenues that we are there, right from servicing those customers who are there stranded, who are taking those policies, who are standing in a hospital, require that help. We want to have those hospitals integrated with our systems. Someone is trying to attempt to a cashless facility. Someone is trying to take a policy at that point of time, understanding that COVID is probably it's going to be an ongoing phenomenon. Now, it just taught us that how quickly we can adapt to this change that got enforced at that point of time, which we were not prepared. And flexibility was the key. We went immediately, we got flexibility, we got to understand how we can integrate our technologies. We pushed in a lot of integrations during that time between different functions. We wanted a seamless experience to the customer because now everyone is afraid to come out of their houses. Be it if you want to purchase an insurance, you don't want to get into a branch. Even if you're at a hospital, you definitely wanted someone to seamlessly, remotely help you. Now, all those things just taught us that how agile we need to be to integrate and help our customers to create a seamless experience. So, flexibility was the key, and how quickly you adapt was something that really taught us, and we were successful in most of the things that we'll speak about in the Mashruda Forum.
Great, Jerome. Thanks so much. And Kamlesh, talking of flexibility, adaptability, how do you see Edelweiss has been flexible, adaptable, and much more to the changing behavior of your customers?
Yeah, so thank you, Neha. And in fact, COVID has taught us too many lessons, I would rather say. And if you really ask, there's a famous quote saying that who's driven technology or digitization in your organization? Is it the CEO? Is it the IT head? Or is it COVID? Okay. And the answer is so obvious for all of us. And what Jerome was saying is when COVID struck us, we all were caught in a state of unawareness, not knowing what to do. And I must tell you, Indians and human breed both, but more so Indians are very, very resilient breed. Okay. And, so we've seen too many things, quickly adapting. And I'll give you three examples to extend what Jerome talked about. The first example is purely from insurance is largely a people business. And when you are kind of into the market, one of the things which you are expecting is how do you create top line? How do you generate business on that particular bit? And we still had a lot amount of things coming on paper, less of digital coming in. One of the challenges, how do you kind of create this entire transition from a paper to a digital bit? Believe you and me, are that the I would rather give the credit to our technology team to lay that foundation. But people, the moment the necessity was there, our distribution quickly aligned to the digital way of operations. We launched innovative programs like Dial for Success, where end-to-end training, need analysis, and selling was done onto a digital manner. If I have to look at on people, not only the virtual platforms through which we are connecting right now, we also kind of created an ecosystem where our employees were kind of exchanging thoughts, conducting meetings, driving this entire change management, including the trainings. And I would rather say the need of the hours in terms of adapting and delivering was more those done by the employees or the people within the organization. And the third important thing, which Neha you talked about, the customers have actually kind of transited in a very, very big way. In fact, what we were struggling is saying that how do we collect digital payments? In fact, at this stage at Edelweiss, more than 60% of our payments at new business is actually coming through a digital way. We are seeing 100% paperless insurance onboarding happening. We are also kind of seeing electronic mandates given from the customer itself, which earlier at that stage, we were identifying many excuses which were happening. So I would rather say, in fact, from a consumer lens, we've seen the individual doing self-help, doing, moving from assisted to an unassisted service. We've seen a mega transition happening on that particular bit.
That's interesting. Very, very interesting. You touched upon some very interesting things. Amarjeet, can you hear us, Amarjeet? I can't see you, so I'm just assuming that your network may be an issue. Yeah, I can see you now. Can you hear us, Amarjeet? Not sure. Amarjeet, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Am I audible?
Yeah. Now you are. Okay. So, Kamlesh touched upon
Yes.
how customers have adopted to self-help. I'm sure, you would have a lot of stories to talk about since you're looking at operations, call center, and that's been your forte, really, if I look at your bio. How do you see self-help has changed in the last 2 years? How have you changed your business of self-help, and how has customers' expectation of a brand like yours changed when it comes to servicing a customer, be it pre-purchase or post-purchase?
Sure. Thank you, Neha. Neha, allow me to first call out the way we have evaluated the entire pandemic phase. I understand people speaking about pre-COVID and COVID. I personally break it up into three phases, right? One is the wave one. I think each one of us as leaders, all of the organizations were completely focusing on how do we get our business reactivated. Business continuity was the theme of the discussions. I still recollect a lot of leaders were moved away from reviewing performance-based dashboards to looking at dashboard which said, what is my headcount activation today? How many are work from home? How many are work from office? Then there came a phase, Neha, when we moved on from that, probably I would say sometime between the month November to February, when we felt, how do we transform this? How do we optimize this? And hence what we discussed today, Neha, is less of a reviewing the work from home, work from office dashboards, but then seeing if we can further optimize the existing capabilities that we carry. For an example, today in contact center, as you mentioned, are we in a position to optimize the time on system of the employees by utilizing on the travel time that they save while they operate from home? So this is the way we start looking at the metrics differently while we speak today. I recollect Kamlesh has been quoting some leaders. I would like to do the same as well. A leader mentioned it's basically a 3V discussion here. One is the virus, the other is a vaccine, and then the V-shaped growth. A lot of organization, I'm concerned, Neha, when we speak about let's watch out for the wave three. is then when we transform, is then when we optimize. I believe such organizations is important for us to understand. Probably the V-shaped growth will convert into a 2V or a W-shaped growth, which none of us as leaders or organizations are looking for, right? And hence the entire landscape, the way we are reviewing our industry, our operations, the execution methodology. Three key areas, Neha, as an organization that we are focusing on from a strategizing standpoint. One is our product strategy. Today, while we revisit our customer experiences, the various platforms through which we are dealing with the customer, we are also looking at how do we change the mix of our products, basically more of a get it now versus an offline plus online kind of methodology that we have been adopting for a while. Second is our complete execution strategies, Neha, which completely focusing on from where do I sell, where do I service. With the local guidelines and the regulation impacting our overall operations, decentralization has become a theme, not just to ensure we have continuity when my teams operate out of different locations, but then more importantly, the advantages that I get when I get closer to the local language, tier two, tier threes. The third aspect, Neha, most importantly, is the communication strategies, both for the customers as well as for the employees. While the customer communication strategy is self-explanatory, allow me to spend a minute on the employee communication strategy. Uh, I believe pre-COVID and now, as organizations, we are really missing on the transparency, seamlessness, as well as the timeliness of the communication, the way we spread across your complete ecosystem. Today, while in a COVID situation, a collection executive in probably South is unable to reach to the customer because of local restrictions, he or she is not aware that a sales executive or a customer service executive at the same minute is speaking to the customer from a contact center. Now, if you're able to bridge all these touch points together through our journey or the customer journey mapping, we are able to not just service the customer better, but then optimize to the earlier comments that I made.
Sure. Thanks, Amar. Thanks. That was interesting. Mikhail, now over to you. I know at Mitra Labs, you do a lot of experiments on new technologies. So, with this COVID situation, have those experiments suddenly skyrocketed? Are you looking at technology in a very different way? How has COVID changed the way you work at Mitra Labs?
Uh, of course, like other organizations, we also had a very tough time initially. It was just about transitioning into this remote working environment. Since we are not per se a BFSI firm, so our governance standards were very different. So we were used to people coming to office, chit-chatting and thinking of new ideas. And that suddenly fell through the roof for us. Over the last few months and all, we got back to office. Now we have again gone back from office. We are still working out of home in Bangalore. So that's why the colorful background. But the thing is that we were always into really investing in new technologies even before COVID. And what has happened due to COVID is that we have actually become a bit channelized in what we need to do so that we can support the industry. So conversational AI is one of the things that we have been working on. We understand now vernacular is very important for us now because with suddenly a new generation of Indians transacting online, which is essentially a forced migration. People have bought vegetables online for the first time, including my father-in-law, which would never have been the case. So new generation is coming up, so they need to have more defined journeys. They need to have simpler journeys so that they can also transact online. They can understand insurance. Insurance in itself can be a bit daunting for the first-time user. People don't understand the difference between a term plan and an endowment plan. So how do you expect them to buy one of them? So these are the challenges that are there. So we are investing a lot on the UX side of things. We are also investing in augmented reality. We have some companies in the MENA region with whom we are working, and where there we are actually looking at augmented reality to visualize risk. So these are the kind of things we are now doubling down upon. Of course, uh, top line, bottom line does get hit, but we definitely need to do that so that we can survive.
It's interesting to actually visualize risk. I mean, I could never imagine doing that. You always see it on paper, but you never visualize risk. But yeah, interesting. So tell me, Amar touched upon some interesting things on how products are changing. You know, we are looking at different product offerings maybe to the consumer. Kamlesh, I want to talk to you a little bit about how you at Edelweiss have looked at it. How I know there are a lot of interesting products that Edelweiss has launched during the lockdown and digital only products. There's a motor insurance a year which is called Switch, and so there are these interesting things that have been launched by Edelweiss. So tell us, where is it? Were they born out of the pandemic, or was the idea genesis already there? And why did you launch them? How did you launch them? How does it cater to the audience it's meant to cater?
Yeah. So, Neha, interesting one, and always innovation is at the center for Edelweiss wherever it has happened. And when you do a lot amount of customer research or discovery, when you kind of reach out, and couple of sessions, Neha, we've also had along with you at Edelweiss, and one of the things which is coming across at the core is what, to an extent, what Mikhail and Amar talked about. The customer is expecting, he's not much expert or aware about insurance. He would want somebody who is an expert in that field, kind of do a need or a discovery for that individual, explain or provide a solution in the way and the manner the individual understands. If it means it's a regionalization, or if it means that for a moment we talk about even our sister concern, which is Edelweiss General Insurance, when we did the problem discovery on the motor side, the customer is saying that there are too many hassles. I don't understand the fine prints. There are too many clauses which are being given. The cost is very high. And more importantly, one of the things which hit us hard, saying that I only use my car twice a week, or maybe if I were to do it 10 days a month to 120 days a year, you're charging me 365 days. It's like something what we've seen toffee insurance saying that use it, pay it to the extent what you consume. I think that's the part of the discovery study which we did from a research point of view, and that's one of our key flagship product which we launched before COVID. And during COVID, in fact, those are the customers who've actually written testimonials to us. That's what I'm given to understand, is saying that in the whole COVID for 1 year, I've actually not used my car, and as a result, the claims experience have come down drastically because of accidents and breakdowns. And the customers are actually covered with first party without having to pay a single premium to the insurance company. So, that's the part. And similarly, if I had to look at on the life side, the need or the invention pushed us saying that, can I offer or launch something like a COVID protect policy, where largely in a health insurance contract, you cover a hospitalization benefit. On the life side, largely we cover death, saying that, something which we want to give to the society, something which we want to protect our population. Can I launch a fixed benefit hospitalization plan on diagnosis or on the treatment when it's required for a following a COVID? So we've actually kind of innovated, and we are the first companies in the life insurance space to having launched a COVID Shield plan on that. And something which I want to extend, Neha, which I wanted to give an example to this panel, and I'm sure Jerome, Mikhail, and Amar will relate to. One of the big surprise, and what Mikhail talked about, people buying vegetables on the first time. In fact, I remember my father-in-law, my father, they actually pulled my phone, which is a smartphone, and said that I've not read a newspaper for 6 months. Let me download that particular app. And he's actually now onto a digital mode on most of its time. And he's actually reading the newspaper on the digital manner. And similarly, you would have heard, and I'm sure all of you would be privy to it, COVID caught us such a huge amount of scare. And I'm giving you an example of US. Only 10% of the populations used to do a teleconsultation or a tele advice with the doctors. It's actually post-COVID today. It is almost 50% of the population, and they're canceling face-to-face visits to convert into a digital visit. India is no exception there. More than 50 million population is actually on the digital apps, consulting doctors online, giving their health parameters values through digital bid. And not only that, we've seen our whole registration process, and largely I would give a credit to the lot of IoTs, startup companies who come together along with public, private, and government organizations to create an ecosystem which the customer is embracing, immaterial of all ages.
Right. Completely agree with you. In fact, I also read some statistics on tele consultation, how they have really gone up. But, Kamlesh, I also read about it dipping now. And one of the reasons of the going up and dipping now is perhaps, it's too early to say, but perhaps people are not happy with the quality of the service. That gets us to the point that while you're giving a service which is online and digital, the quality of that, does that meet your customer's expectation, is so pertinent to look into, right? And while I'll come back and dwell a little more and talk to you a little more on the permanency of this behavior change, I think that's another thing we as brands need to look at, that, how permanent is this behavior change? Is it short-lived? Is it COVID-lived? Is it a permanent change? But before that, I'll pull in Jerome in the conversation. Jerome, how has Bajaj looked at this, this whole customization to the current situation? What have you done in your products, in your offerings, in the way you work, in any way that you customize to what is going to be valid for the consumer today?
I'll take on from where Kamlesh was speaking about, how we have actually evolved, from the product offerings that we have right now. And one thing that immediately comes to my mind is, he spoke about teleconsulting. We have something very similar, and that was for a health product. And we call it as DigiSwash. Now, what is DigiSwash? What is to do is, if a customer is coming to buy a policy for a health product, the customer really does not have to walk in for a medical checkup. It actually takes that particular proposal form and it goes to an underwriting team. The underwriting team reviews the entire proposal, and based on the proposal it gives cues, and if he feels that there is some kind of a medical trigger that needs to be done, it triggers that medical trigger. And once that medical trigger goes, it automatically goes as a form of an SMS and an email to a customer. Now here the customer automatically has a flexibility of actually clicking on that particular link SMS and also fix up an appointment based on the medical history that has been asked upon for evaluation. The beauty of it does not stop here. Now from here, what happens is the moment I click and I take an appointment, it goes to a designated center, and there is where an indication goes to the center. The center reviews it, picks it up, and immediately gives an indication to the customer the appointment has been fixed and a personal is on the way. Now everyone knows how an Ola and Uber works, right? I mean, once you book it, you can to see it. Okay, it's going to be 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So the journey from here also starts in a way where the customer is able to see when the personal is going to come. Now, once the personal enters, keeping all the COVID aspects in mind, everything is Wi-Fi enabled, as well as enabled in such a way that even if I'm doing a weighing machine, it is enabled to go ahead and pick up from that particular machine itself directly to the proposal form that was linked. So there is no human intervention where I actually have to fill in something manually, causing an error. That does not stop there. It goes to a doctor. The doctor is able to see it on a screen. I just have to go, all the values are populated, the height, the weight, the ECG test, whatever has been recommended. He goes and reviews it. And once he reviews it, if he feels the need that there is something else to be triggered, he triggers it off. Else there is a rating form. The rating form goes back to the underwriting team. The underwriting team reviews it and clicks yes, the proposal is done. Now, here, few months ago, where when we were evolving this and we have taken to a different height, at that point of time, technology was at the inception. Like you said about the genesis of all these things were already there. Now we just adapted, we just improvised, and we have taken it to a next level. And the experience does not stop here, because there are sometimes the underwriting team also says that you need to have a telephonic conversation with the customer just to understand. We have not stopped there. We have something known as TeleMR, and that TeleMR is a preset definition wherein all the questions are asked. It gets recorded for a customer at his convenience, and that gets again transposed onto a digitalized platform where we are able to see it, take a conscious call before we give a policy to a customer. So things evolved drastically for every one of us. I mean, 10 months ago, where we spoke about adapting to those kind of a method, and now it's evolving. And I'll touch upon when you said about whether it's going to be a permanent solution about the quality. It keeps on feeding, it keeps on evolving, it keeps on adjusting, and the learnings are again and again fed back into our systems, and there is where we improvise. So for me, it is not going to decrease in any way. It's just going to evolve. Customers are going to adapt, because that's a new norm that's come in. Most of the people are comfortable. Initial learnings have been picked up, and we have just improvised. That's where we are at this point.
Interesting, Jerome. And you're talking of a completely contactless experience. While you were explaining it, I could only imagine a sci-fi movie going in front of me where, everything is just so digital. So, but we're all living in that era now. Amar, I want to ask you, how permanent is this change? Are we going to go back in our ways of working, or are we only going to innovate digital now?
So, Neha, to answer that, I think first we should look back and say, why are we here today? While Kamlesh and Jerome was speaking, I was just thinking, how many of these things that we have done today were not part of our long range strategies already pre-COVID? They were. The difference is probably the timeline was 2025. COVID made us realize, hey, you need to get it done in 2020. I think that's something which has really changed or driven the entire leaders in the organization to get these executed now. So has COVID really made us ideate these changes? I don't completely agree. The other aspect is I understand COVID has been unbiased. It's given an opportunity to each of the industries to reimagine, rethink. Probably demonetization was not. It was slightly biased towards a particular industry from a growth standpoint. Coming to your question, Neha, how permanent are these? I think it completely depends upon the adoption of this change by the customer and the cultural orientations of the organization. If we are still making these changes as proof of concepts at a strategic level, and I know few of the organizations, I know some of the changes within our organization as well, which are still looked at as POCs. These will really not exist probably a year back when we say we are back to BAU, busy in our daily lives, and I'll look at it later. Another LRS, another 2025. That said, Neha, the customer expectations will increase because customer does not understand what am I building for LRS, right? So anything that I introduce to the customer today, that needs to be consistent, that needs to be enhanced on an ongoing basis. Allow me to give you an example. We were doing a review as part of our the entire escalation landscape on where are the customers, through which channels are customers reaching out to us from an escalation standpoint. Now that escalation could be as a result of some kind of activities at the branch, or it could be as a result of promotional calling, etc. What we really realized that a lot of customers are adopting towards reaching out to the organization through social media platforms versus wherein in the past they were doing it through branch or probably writing email to us, etc. Now the two main concerns or opportunities that I see from that change is a, while the customer is adopting to a social media platform, for me to communicate with the customer is slightly more convenient with less turnaround time and seamless. But at the same time, the viral factor of this particular channel is really huge as compared to customer walking into a branch and complaining. So as an organization, I could either decide I revisit this entire change of strategy to respond to the customers through various channels and put that in my LRS for 2025, or I say the customers adopted to this, this will continue even after the lockdown restrictions open up and customers allowed to walk to the branch. So I think we have made lives easy for the customer. We have to be ready to ensure that our practices are consistent enough to cater to those changes as well from a behavior standpoint.
Right, I completely agree.
Allow me to quote Bill Price, Neha here. He rightly mentioned ideas don't move mountains, right? They only tell when the bulldozers to go to work. I think that's what something that as organizations we need to understand. Ideation is great. Get your bulldozer working.
Yeah, awesome. Yes, true. So, we've spoken, all this while we've spoken of COVID and how COVID has changed behaviors. There's another thing that's happening in the customer ecosystem, which is the young millennial people, right? And their behaviors, which are nothing to do with COVID. I mean, they are the way they are. And we call them the Henry, the acronym, which is, when expanded, it is high on earning, not yet rich, not rich yet, right? That is what Henry stands for. So this Henry population, which has disposable income, which kind of knows what they want to buy, they're on Instagram, they're pretty bold in their statements. Mikhail, I want to know from you, how as a brand, because you're the youngest brand here, how as a brand do you deal with this kind of audience? And what are the learnings that you have from them?
So we have to realize that around 60% of our population is now below 35, I think. And around 40% of the workforce is also the millennials and the Gen Zs. I think it's very important to look at the Gen Zs as a separate class because they grew up online. They have not seen the offline times and the Bajaj scooters that probably the millennials have seen. So when it comes to these kind of buyers, they are very aspirational. They are used to the kind of customer experience that be it mobile brands, be it financial institutions also are getting into it, be it fintech, how fintech, the neobanks, how they are coming up. They're used to these things. Insurance is not something that they were thinking about. At least, I mean, you wouldn't want to, when not yet rich, as you said. So you wouldn't want to probably put in 10% of income on something which is like a retirement plan. Unfortunately, a lot of the messaging of the insurance industry tends to be slotted around that retirement planning and the child planning, which is probably 30s, not for the young generation, for the Gen Zs. So now with what has happened due to COVID is that suddenly this generation has also woken up that okay, fine, yes, everything is fine, but we need to have some kind of life and some kind of health plan. So they have also woken up to this, and that's where the customer experience is going to be very important, because they are not, as I said, the same thing, they don't understand insurance. So will they even end up buying? When I started my career, I wanted to buy a health insurance policy, but I ended up buying a critical illness policy. I thought that it's the same thing. It wasn't. So these are the kind of problems that are there, and they still exist in the industry. So the brands be able to connect to the Gen Z? That's very important. The user experience need to be better. They need, as Amarjeet said, socials are so important. Let's look at something that is used to be a rage pre-COVID. I mean TikTok, and now it's Instagram Reels. You have got fintech firms collaborating with influencers on these platforms, so that basic financial concepts can be spoken about. So everyone wants to save and probably buy the next DSLR and mirrorless cameras and things like that. Where is insurance there? We are not there, because we have not been able to introduce what is the need of the customer. Why should he care about insurance right now, apart from the COVID induced fear that is there? But I feel this fear, probably in the next 1.5 years, people will kind of forget about it. We are a slightly fatalistic people, so maybe they will forget about COVID. So that's when you need to ensure that they are able to discover the need for insurance. And for that, the platforms, be it omni-channel CX, be it like the conversation, as Amajit said, social conversation, they should be able to carry forward the same conversation to the website bot also. All of these things will become very important, and simplified buying will be very, very critical.
Right, correct. So we're saying that, a conversation, we need to build a conversation with these young people, whether it's on the form of the bots or whether it's in social media, whether it's the influencers doing it on the social media. Then there's another chunk of persona, which, Kamlesh, I would want you to come in and talk about, which is the Bharat that we have, which is, really different. They don't understand English, or, I mean, there's nothing wrong in not understanding English, but they have a different way of conversation. They're culturally different. You and I know how much difficult it is to get them on a digital platform to buy insurance. They still rely on an insurance agent. They've got a trust there. They've got a family member who's an agent, and they will buy through that agent. How do you cater to that Bharat? Is it only about translating it into their language, or it's much more than that? I think we've lost Kamlesh. Anyone else wants to come in here? Amal, do you want to come in here and talk about, how do you cater to this Bharat, and how do you fulfill their, their requirements?
Right. So there are two things. One is, how do we simplify the way we sell, the way we service? A lot of time that we spend with service project management teams, they really focus on the language that we use while we communicate to them. What are the various communication channels so that we can reach out to them? As an organization, we continue to go local. The spread that we are doing in rural, the spread that we are doing in the growth across tier 2, tier 3 and beyond, requires us to focus on those aspects as well. But then more importantly, since you did mention that, let's say these folks really still depend upon maybe a contact center agent calling them for selling, or probably a toll-free number that they can call to get service, which is still their preferred mode of communication for selling or servicing, versus probably using a self-service option. In that case, I think somewhere where we are still lacking behind is breaking up the language into dialect. By experience, Neha, what we have seen is more than 85% of the contact centers, or the phone channels, as different people call it, are still based in the urban locations. Now, you open a contact center in Mumbai, hire the millions there, the local dialect is still missing. The connect that we would expect them to have with the local folks in probably a Krishnagiri in Tamil Nadu is different versus a Hosur in Tamil Nadu, right? These are completely different when it comes to dialects. I think that is the area that we as an organization and a lot of other leaders in the industry are focusing on as well. Today we are decentralizing not just from a continuity standpoint but then also from a productivity enhancement standpoint, wherein we are looking at opening our contact centers in tier 2, tier 3 and beyond locations, wherein probably individuals residing, born and brought up in that particular location are speaking with the customers, and hence the connect is better. The other thing, and probably this will overlap between this question of yours as well as the one that you had asked, Mikhail, is the difference today, Henry in urban or Henry in local or a rural. Uh, one uniqueness between both of them is they are not like the previous generation customer, those who wake up in the morning, would like to talk to a customer service agent, spend some time, build rapport, and have a great day. They really are not interested if the customer service agent knows me really well. Is he telling me how's the weather where you stay? Not interested. What I'm interested in is best service for me is no service. Can you proactively start fixing the reason why I'm calling you? And hence, Neha, as an organization, while we go rural, and parallelly, we are also moving away from focusing on, let's say, a metric which is called as repeats in customer service industry, to how do we reduce the overall request or inquiries that are coming in. Coming back to your primary question, Neha, about rural, like I said, the focus has to be beyond vernacular and getting more dialect, getting more localized to a tier 2, tier 3 levels.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Amar. In fact, we were improving the customer experience, localizing the experience with one of the call centers with a leading insurance company. And while the IVR asked the consumer whether he wants to continue conversation in English or Hindi, and the consumer pressed Hindi, the guy who's taking the call at the call center was an urban guy. He didn't understand the local language of "mujhe panna nahi mil raha hai." He didn't understand the word panna, while the consumer said it thrice. So I completely agree with you. The local dialects, it's so important to get into them to be able to cater to your consumer better today. Kamlesh, since we have you back, the same question over to you.
Yeah, sorry if my connection went off. Uh, so I'll just kind of come back to the origin, Neha, and in fact, one step before what Amar was actually talking about. If we really look from a statistics perspective, 60% of our population is into the rural India, and most of the people are actually not insured from any form of insurance to a greater extent. While government has done a good amount of efforts, Ayushman Bharat, and PMJJBY schemes and all, but the fact remains the awareness of insurance, the belief that insurance is going to protect me, and more importantly, when I even take insurance, whether I'm going to get some amount of benefit or the premium what I'm going to pay towards coverage, all these are actually running as a big question marks in the divide of the Bharat kind of a population there. And if you really ask me, lot amount of companies have tried to solve this puzzle. They've done lot amount of initiatives, and I can actually talk about few of them. But essentially, to come back to the core, nobody is able to get the model right. And what do I mean from that particular perspective? And to an extent, and I think Amar talked about demonetization. Actually, demonetization has given a new birth to a UPI. It's actually no longer people are thinking about opening up a bank and investing into infrastructure. There are companies like Paytm, there are companies like WhatsApp saying that I will come out with a bank. I need not get into a physical infrastructure on that. Similarly, on COVID, we've seen telemedicine is actually kind of bridge their entire divide in terms of offering that level of care and advice even to Bharat from the urban areas. Similarly, if I were to look at the ecosystem in insurance, there are two big things which, and I personally believe, which can kind of do, a transition from where we are, not in a complete form. One is digitization, and second is data availability. What do I mean by today with these two tools? We have not only have an ability to convert a physical to a digital model, understand the customer better from a vernacular capability perspective to an extent what Amar was talking about. The third important thing is we'll be able to predict incidences, be able to price it better, and administer in a better form. And there are many models. I'm saying the first step is awareness. The second step is distribution. where a traditional set may not work. A local kirana shop, a local connect at the regional level, using a technology as a mean, AI and data to understand the behavior better, so as to kind of not only pitch it right, also deliver it right from a servicing point of view. I think these are the things which directionally has to move, Neha, from my perspective.
Right, I agree with you. And as we are, coming to the end of the panel discussion, and you've spoken of AI and ML and all of the future of, not future, actually AI is already the present. We shouldn't even call it a future technology anymore. I want to ask all the panelists here, starting from you, Jerome, where do you see the future? Is what technologies, what customer behavior? How do you see insurance? Is it going to be micro insurance the way Toffee gives it, or how do you look at insurance, Jerome? Is it going to be digital only? I mean, Go Digit has no office really. Jerome? Okay, we'll come back to Jerome. Amar, this is for you then. How do you see the future? And what do you want to bet on?
So, if I may take the permission and define future as 2022-23 and not go beyond that, Neha, considering probably all the waves by then of COVID are taken care, uh, I see the traditional and digital to coexist, Neha. I think it's too early as an industry, as a country, with the infrastructure readiness, the awareness of digital across our populations, etc. We will continue to have contact centers when people will still call, will still service. Parallelly, urban will continue to move to self-service, continue to get it now digital buying without a help or assistance by a telecallers or the contact center executives. That's more from the landscape standpoint. When it comes to the tools, I strongly feel in the next 12 months as an organization we should and we will be more ready when it comes to creating an infrastructure from a governance and info security or data security standpoint. I think that's probably a topic that we did not get an opportunity to touch today. But then, beyond all the changes that we are discussing about going more localized, working from home, AI, etc., as days pass by, the risk of data exposure, data leakage continues to increase. That is going to be an industry-wide investment that organization will make. A lot of startups across the country will get opportunities to get empaneled with larger organization and jointly collaborating in creating frameworks which allow us to bring in more stability and security around the revised re-engineers, and let me use the favorite word, transformational models that we all as organization want to get in.
Right, right. Thanks, Amar. Mikhail, what according to you is the future? Where is your bet in future? Is it the Bitcoin? Is it the AI? Is it the cryptocurrency? What is going to change insurance? How do you look at it?
Sure. So I'm not sure if cryptocurrency will tie in with insurance as of now, but that's an interesting angle actually. I think insurance itself is going to become very episodic and experiential. If you look at the Gen Z, they are not into retirement planning as yet. So what do they do? Then probably, and they are really a lot into experiences. So they want to go for concerts, they want to go for trips, travel abroad, Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara kind of concepts. So you would need these kind of micro insurance products that align with these Gen Z and their aspirations. That's of course on the product side. On the technology front, I think again we have to be ready for these guys again. So conversational AI would be very important. Of course, I think Amarjeet touched very rightly on the not just the vernacular part of it, but also the sentiment side of things, that the local dialect and things like that would be very important. Actually, had a very different experience myself. We were working with one of the call centers of a leading insurance company, and that's an insight we got from the floor manager that in a travel insurance product we write USA EXCL, worldwide EXCL USA, which means worldwide excluding USA. What the consumer was saying was that he was just saying USA and he was saying, oh, this is for my USA insurance, while it was excluding USA. And this was an insight that we got from the agent on the floor. So it's not just that we need to cater to the vernaculars. Our wordings need to also be much more understandable to the consumer. I think technology, augmented reality, all of these things will always be there in the play. When it comes to cyber security, I think that was a major concern last year. We had some incidences where suddenly, because what happened was people moved out of offices and the secure environments, data security has become a huge problem. We as an organization faced that also, and we had to really ramp up our security protocols and all these networks that we needed to create. So all of these things will, I think everything will have to coexist. India is too complex a country to just talk about a lemonade kind of a renters insurance kind of a model. I think everything shall be able to coexist.
Right. And Kamlesh, what do you think? I mean, there's such a tectonic shift happening. There are super apps coming, and everyone wants to be one place for everything. Will insurance start also doing e-commerce because there's super apps concept, or will it all just become very granular and a company will only like a lemonade? Will it break down to granularity? Where do you see future?
Yeah. So interesting one. So you're getting us crystal ball gazing, Neha. So I think that's interesting. But I would rather state it something which goes very rapidly expanding will always contract as well. So while we're seeing, digital exploding, people moving online and lot amount of opportunities coming in, I think people will move, it's the limbic system will take care of it and they will actually come back to traditional part. But yes, there are a lot amount of interesting things according to me which will change. I'm sure some of my fellow panelists will agree. One thing, Neha, I see for a considerable amount of time, something which is non-customer facing, a back-end role or a back office role, and that actually applies to healthcare also. Okay, I see them embracing work from home, embracing releasing of infrastructure to a greater extent, and that is going to continue for some time because people are going to realize that outcome is more important than an input. So to an
Yeah.
extent, that one part which I would see. The second part from an insurance point, which will be very, very pertinent. I think we talked a lot amount of digital shift which is going to happen. I think the reforms will take care in such a manner. It is actually going to drive about process simplification, customer journey mappings, and then embracing digital will give a very sustained level of impact for the organizations. I think that's the first change out of the four which I'm going to talk about. The second part is data and AI. We spoke some examples, but trust me, in terms of identifying behaviors, creating your call to actions to those behavior, which could be creating nudge from a pitching a product perspective, from a servicing, from a reactive to a proactive point of view, and more importantly, also in terms of doing renewal premium collections to make sure that a sustainability or a profitability goes higher. I think that's a shift which is going to happen. So insurance company will or actually are revisiting their AI models and more importantly their own data structures, saying that if my base is right, then only I will be able to do a complementing page. That's the second part. The third important thing out of the four is companies are realizing, and one part Mikhail talk about cyber security and incidences. Insurance companies have no choice but to modernize their technologies. And companies are moving towards cloud. They are actually, releasing lot amount of bandwidth, which they're realizing are not efficient. They are actually moving variabilization of cost. They're deploying resources to a different level on that particular way. And last but not the least, the fourth one I would see a people shift, which I'm linking because COVID impact is going to create some permanent weight. So today we are not, when we earlier used to interview, we said that our position is in Bombay or position is in Delhi. I think the COVID is teaching us saying that the skill is more important than the location. And that's the part of shift which I would see is going to happen. And these are the few things, and I can go on, Neha, but this is something, according to me, is going to be a big renaissance, which I foresee in the reasonable amount of time.
Awesome.
Sure, sure.
Nice. And since we have Jerome back, Jerome, can you hear us now? Jerome, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you clear now. Jerome, we were at the concluding question at the panel, trying to understand what does future hold for us? What does future hold for insurance as an industry? We quickly want you to wrap this up, telling us what, in your opinion, is the future.
For me, I guess I heard a few panelists and then I lost some network, and because when I was trying to log in. But from whatever I have understood from Amarjeet and Kamlesh was talking in the last, for me, the ideation will continue to exist, the transformation will continue to happen, and the innovation also will continue to happen. Now, how do this correlate and how does this exist and how do much we adapt quickly while we understand there are multiple phases that's going to change from a technology standpoint, talking about data security, talking about how adaptability, talking about the linguistic barriers that probably has been there. It all boils down to how quickly can we get it at ease for the customer so that whenever they have to reach, they will be able to reach. So these things would keep on evolving. And like I heard Kamlesh, probably mentioning that, something that expands quickly also will contract. I think that also will be there. But for a phase, it will be there over a period of time when we all look at in a holistic model. We will evolve, we will adapt, and these things over a period of time will become a way of life for every one of us.
Right. Agreed with you. So we all jointly agree that customer centricism is here to stay. Everything around it is elastic. It may expand, it may come back, but we've all realized it's the customer centricism which is the key to business today. And I see a paradigm shift from brands trying to sell something. They have moved to another paradigm of trying to help the customer buy the right thing. That's the thing. So I'm not selling anymore. I'm helping my customer to buy the thing that he wants. Right. So with that, I think is the evolution of what we create and what we sell online or offline now. So that's the end of the panel. I would love to take up questions. Marcus, are there any questions there? Can you see them? I forgot to tell the audience they could put it in the chat. If you have any questions, please put them on the chat. We can take them up. The panel is here. You will get this wealth of knowledge.
It's in the feed section, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, go to the feeds and type in your questions here. Do you see any questions, Marcus?
Not really, Neha.
Okay, great. Awesome. Then, do you want to wait for a minute for people to type?
No, I think we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, if we're short of time, we'll wrap
Yeah,
it
we're
up.
short of time. All right, panel members. Neha, firstly, thank you so much for moderating this panel. It
Thank
was the
you.
best panel that I've been part of in a very, very long time. Also, kudos to the panel members for sharing their insights. It was really, really insightful. I'm sure the attendees will agree with me that this panel has really gone in a very right direction, steered by you, Neha. So, thank you so much. All right, and with this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of the session for today. Thank you so much for joining in and showing us your support, and most importantly, giving us your valuable time during this phase. We look forward to being in touch and coming up with more such events for you guys in the near future. Once again, thank you to all the panel members. Thank you, Mikhail. Thank you, Jerome, Kamlesh, Amarjeet, and Neha, to you as well. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thanks, Marcus. Thanks, everyone. It was very insightful. I had a lot of learning myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Neha.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
everyone.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.